Hello all. The next liturgical vestment I'm discussing is the chasuble. We'll talk about the cope a little bit later too and how they are connected. It's a sleeveless, it's open here so we don't see a sleeve, outermost garment that a priest wears when he is celebrating the Eucharist, celebrating Holy Mass. When a priest is wearing a chasuble, he will only be celebrating Mass with a couple exceptions here and there. Some say it resembles a poncho, and they're not wrong, or perhaps that seamless garment that Christ was wearing during his passion that was gambled away by the Roman soldiers during his crucifixion. It's a name that is derived from casual or little house. We try to get the etymology of the word there. I suppose some of the less flattering, bulky chasubles allow me that unfortunate namesake of little house. This one ain't too bad though, I'll give that. It's a vestment that is for the priestly office. Priests and bishops can wear a chasuble, of course, because they're the ones who celebrate Mass, symbolizing Christ's yoke, as Matthew chapter 11 verse 30 says, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." Now, it's really difficult to go through in a short video and grasp all the changes in fashion with chasubles, because it's changed more than any other liturgical garment that's ever existed. And also, from region to region, from holy order to holy order, up to the Pope, chasubles look so different, and just looking through some of their history makes you go, wow. Ranging from what we would call what a jack wears on the back of a deck of cards, you know what the jack wears there, to almost like a wedding gown that had a big long train in the back that the subdeacon and deacon would have to pick up and lift and move, and the same way the maid of honor would during a wedding for that special gal. Like the stole, because of how clergymen pushed the limits of the chasuble, limits had to be set throughout the years. Now, this is called a panula type chasuble, which we are familiar with. It is the one that goes over the head, has a hole right in the middle, and fits over the priest's shoulders. Again, it's increased in size and it's decreased throughout the years, and in decoration and simplicity as well, settling into what it is now. But the biggest change is actually how it's shifted 90 degrees. Before, a chasuble would look more something like this, at least where the seam was. And if you look closely, you can see the seam kind of going through the middle with a little more of the decoration off to the side. Now, it still would be sleeveless like it is, but this is where we get some of this decorative orphrey that comes down. This is an orphrey that descends. It's because they would take this seam of the garment, and you just don't want to look at a seam right here. They would add some gold thread here or decoration here and there. And all of a sudden, as it began to evolve, it turned into something that looked more like this. A little more freedom of motion here, and going down the belly and going down to where the chasuble would end has that decoration. The front has been pointed in the past throughout its formation, coming down almost like a V down to the floor. Sometimes chasubles were made to match the shape of the church bells. They've been perfect circles that were worn. They've been thin, they've been fat. They've looked like a t-shirt with cut-off sleeves, good if you keep yourself in shape. They've been perfect rectangles as well, all while maintaining the concept of what the overlying garment is. A hole for the head, resting on the shoulders, and sleeveless. Okay. They've been decorated through the years with tapestry, with jewels, with precious metals, with silks and velvets, pearls and feathers, and pieces of vestments from other departed saints, which I think is pretty neat. There's some patchwork chasubles that have been put together with all sorts of recognition got into them. Really, really cool. In the Catholic Church today, you'll see two main styles of chasubles, but there are more that are in use. This is a Gothic style, which is very rounded right here that I'm wearing and showing you right here. As you can see, as it comes around, at least down to here, how it has a rounded edge. There's also this style here that instead of just having some print and an orphrey, you'll have a picture of something. Here on the front of this chasuble, we have the nativity scene, and on the back, we have the visitation of the Magi. In the very traditional style of Gothic chasuble, we have the Y orphrey here. Again, the orphreys that come down off the shoulders, again, reminiscent of the time when it was tilted 90 degrees and coming down as well. Sometimes you'll see this without the Y or without this right here, but always meeting and coming down too. Beautiful golden vestment. Finally, I'm going to show you what's called a monastic style chasuble, which is my first Mass chasuble. Back when I was preparing to be ordained at the end of 2006, going into 2007, I did a simple Google search. What's in fashion for chasubles? I didn't know what wormhole I'd be going down, but at that time it was monastic chasubles that went all the way to the floor. So this is my bright white chasuble that is monastic style, which means the edge that goes near the floor is squared off, as you can see here. Squared off, and when I wear it, it goes all the way down to where my alb ends, all the way down to my feet. It looks cool, don't get me wrong, but it's not the most practical thing. I've come close to falling while celebrating the Christmas liturgy or Easter, the only times I would have worn that. Okay, I've changed my vestments into the cope. And the cope, like a chasuble, it's a ceremonial vestment that is meant to wear on top of everything else. And in fact, it comes from the traditional cloaks that were worn throughout the Roman Empire. It's a semicircle when it's spread out, and that's why I chose this one, because this one's a really big one that goes all the way to the floor. It goes across the shoulders as we see here, and it kind of makes one look a little bit intimidating before somebody else, which is the whole point of a cape in the superhero thing. I mean, cope, not cape. Okay. So the cope has an interesting history as it was developed alongside the chasuble. In fact, some think that it was worn interchangeably with the chasuble throughout the early part of the church. For a period, the rule was if one was at liturgy and not wearing a chasuble, and this is just for a small period of time, one was to wear a cope. Today we have the option to wear a cope when we're leading a liturgy that is not the celebration of Holy Mass. So this would include paraliturgical services such as Stations of the Cross, Sorrowful Lamentations, any Marian devotion, a litany, or having just a particular blessing before Mass is celebrated, or just a blessing on its own. Cope should be worn in procession if you're having a proper procession. If there's an archpriest assisting a bishop, or if there's an archdeacon at service, he'd be wearing a cope. And if the service where a sacrament is being imparted, then a cope is an option that should be taken as well, such as a penitential service, or if a bishop is imparting holy orders to a man, or even if during a baptism, a cope could be optionally worn too. Okay, so as the cope was moving away from something more cloaky, capey sort of thing during the Roman Empire, it became known officially as a kappa, which is not far from the cope today, signifying it being the topmost garment. That's what kappa means, topmost garment. And as the kappa was, and as many vestments were, it was practical. It was built with a hood in case it got cold. They were lined with fur or something made heavier in case it got cold and a priest was traveling around. It was, after it became around the 6th century or so, more of a celebratory item to be worn in church only and not while traveling, the hood was removed and replaced with something that we're more familiar with that we see around today, a more decorated flap, I guess we could say, on the back of the cope. Now, how copes were decorated fell into the same timeline as the chasubles. They were simple for a time, and as gold threads began to, when they were pushed around and entered into chasubles, the same thing happened to copes, and they became fancy as they did. They became a bit more grand as the chasubles did. They became a bit more reduced as the chasubles did as well. Again, they were alongside each other because they both served as the topmost garment, the topmost vestment that was worn during sacred liturgy. One little neat thing about cope, while chasubles changed shape quite a bit, the cope, once it became a kappa, pretty much looks like it did now, with one little exception. There was a period, and these still exist, where this piece of fabric over here was removed to give the priest, now he's only allowed to bless with his right hand, a little more freedom to move around, because not every clergyman has a deacon and a subdeacon to hold his garments aside as he's doing a blessing, or say for at a funeral wearing the cope, incensing the remains. Cope is allowed to be worn by anybody who is in orders who is having a liturgical service. I can remember being a young cleric some 15 years ago, picking up that cope and going, man, I can't believe I could wear this before. I could wear a stole, you know. I was just thinking through all of that and how powerful it was to actually have a cope on. Such a long time ago. A couple little neat things about the cope. This clasp has an official name. It is called a morse. And the flap in the back is still called a hood, and it hangs down. It looks something like a shield. You can see like this in this purple chasuble, violet chasuble, how it hangs down here. And in this white, I call it a chasuble, it's a cope. And in this white cope right here, how it has a tassel on the bottom too. The tassel is something optional that is decorative. I looked around and tried to see what the significance of the tassel was, and it was just tied to academia for many generations there. So this part 5 was a long one, copes and chasubles on the outermost garments. I hope you enjoyed this part 5 of liturgical vestments, and we'll move forward with some things that are a bit more obscure in the next couple of weeks. God bless you.